This is exactly the time when we want our children to be making mistakes, when the consequences are not huge. I think we can be letting our children speak for themselves. If we could take them to the GP, let your 3-year-old tell the doctor why you've come, and then you can fill in the gaps. We want to be giving our children what we call manageable discomfort. We don't want to throw them in the deep end.
Welcome to Parents We've Met. I'm Dana Galloway, and next to me, my sidekick, one of my go-tos in this parenting gig is Jenny Hale. She is a senior parent coach and an author, KFC, Kind Firm Calm. Nice to hang out with you, Jenny.
It's awesome to hang out with you, Dana.
Season 3, we are so underway. Today we've got a episode from the Coach's Couch, and in the hot seat, Coach Kristin Ward. Welcome back into studio.
Thank you.
We're talking about a bit of a cool topic today, helping our kids grow in independence. A big one, I think all of us parents are, thinking a lot about.
Yeah, we're hanging out for some more information about independence. It's lovely to have you with us. Kristin, it's funny when I look back on one of the conversations that we had with Petra, and she said that it was one of her biggest fears, really, that her children were going to leave home. But then she laughed and said, well, that's exactly what we're parenting for, is to get our kids ready to leave home. And we want to launch them well into the world. So it's a topic that's dear to our hearts, dear to parents' hearts. We want to know, are we teaching them the skills they need to be ready? And I guess we're wondering, is there less independence in children than there used to be?
Yeah, and I so relate to Petra. Like, that's so relatable. We just love these people being around. They're just wonderful and fun, and it sort of seems quite daunting to have them leave. But yeah, we are aiming for it. Yes, there is research that suggests that there's a lot less roaming behaviour in children over than what there was a few decades ago. So roaming means that the distance that parents allow their children to go around the neighbourhood independently and move around by themselves. So that's one aspect, that there's definitely less independence. But independence is far more than just moving around the neighbourhood independently. It's also learning how to cook a meal, taking responsibility for taking your Chromebook, charging your Chromebook at night and packing the things you need for school each day, and knowing how to talk to a teacher if you're unhappy about something. So I definitely think there's a bit of a pattern of parents doing too much in all of those areas for their children.
Yeah, I'm thinking of all the things that my kids could be doing that I do, because sometimes it's just easier. I just want to get out the door, and so I'm like, I'm just going to make their bed, and I'm like, well, that's not really helping anyone. What are some of the reasons that we struggle with this as parents and caregivers?
I do think being in a rush is a big thing in this day and age. Both children and parents have much less unstructured time in our days. So we are under more of a time budget, and it often does feel more efficient. I'll do a better job, it'll be quicker if I just do it myself. So we have that. And I think parents can also slightly struggle with relinquishing control. You have to kind of tolerate the kitchen bench not being wiped as well as you would like it to be while your child is learning that. Or even they're cooking the mince and they don't strain off the fat in the same way you would, so there's a little bit of a control thing sometimes. But I think a really big thing is parents find it hard to let their children make mistakes, or to accept at all that their child would wear the consequences of not doing something well. So if they forgot their PE gear, the teacher might get cross at them, and we feel very uncomfortable with that, or letting that happen, or we feel very anxious maybe about the fact that my child might be cold today because they didn't take their jacket, and so I'll just drop it off.
I did that this week. I got home after drop off and saw that the books had been left. When you're right, it's just that's the consequence of, hey, you should have brought your books, the teacher's saying, or having to borrow a jumper or something. I think too, when you talk about roaming, it's sort of that weighing up. I think we're so much more aware of what's happening in the world, news, social media, all the bad stuff. And so it's sort of weighing up to allowing that freedom and building independence, but also wanting to keep our kids safe. Because I remember as a primary school kid getting the bus to school, and I don't remember anything bad happening, except a really old lady sat down next to me once, and as she went to get up, she turned and looked at me and kissed me on the lips and stood up and got off. It made for a great story. It was very weird. Everyone in the bus looked at me like, what just happened? But she would have been probably close to 90, and I think she just thought I was someone else. But that's not a major in the big scheme of things. But now when we see the world and all that's going on, there is that wanting to keep them a little bit closer.
Yeah. We definitely as parents too often want to look like we're doing a good job. And I think it's hard for parents when you allow a child to make a mistake or to not bring their homework to school or their library book. We're just desperate to say, look, I'm doing a good job, so I'll pack it for you. And so often we have to sit on our hands a little bit in parenting so that we recognise that there are others out there, other subcontractors that can help us build this independence in our kids.
Yeah, it's really parents learning to tolerate a little bit of discomfort themselves, and we can feel a little bit embarrassed if our child is in trouble at school or if our child forgot something again, but I think what's really helpful for parents is understanding that this is exactly the time when we want our children to be making mistakes, when the consequences are not huge. Yes. You know, it's not the end of the world if your child gets a detention or gets told off at school, whereas if they sort of forget when their NCEA exam is, that's a bigger deal. You know, so we want those organisational skills, those systems, those independence things to be starting really young.
There's a real balance issue here, isn't there, with what we do as parents. And I know some of us are more the kind of parent that hovers around, that picks things up, that anticipates what's needed, and really doesn't give much allowance for emerging independence. And then there's others of us who take our hands off very quickly, and children fend for themselves quite a lot. So how do we get this balance right?
I think it's got to be really gradual. We want to be giving our children what we call manageable discomfort. We don't want to throw them in the deep end. We don't want to just let them fend for themselves, like you said. So we really do want it to be very incremental. And when we are offloading a task to a child, we don't just sort of go, let's just see if you make a mistake. You know, we need to really explain to our child, okay, from now on, sweetheart, you're in charge of charging your Chromebook overnight. I know you're at a wonderful age where you can remember to do that, and I think you're going to need a system to remember. What do you think? What sort of system do you think you could do to set that up for yourself? If you forget, I'm not going to do it for you, and it's possible you might get in trouble at school, and it's not the end of the world if you do. So that we kind of are really letting our children understand our intention. Our intention is to nurse them towards independence, or to guide them towards independence, and our intention is not, we're still there supporting them in that skill.
I mean, you mentioned one way there, but what's some other practical ways we can encourage and build independence and a sense of capability in our kids?
From very young, I think we can be letting our children speak for themselves. If we're taking them to the GP, let your 3-year-old tell the doctor why you've come, and then you can fill in the gaps. Or if you're buying milk from the dairy, let the child walk in and pick it out and use your PayWave card at the counter. Learning how to interact with adults, learning how to manage themselves, be respectful. All of those things are beautiful skills that we can be giving to our kids. Let them ask for the haircut that they want. Let them walk to the barber with their brother once one of them can cross the road safely, and buy a pie on the way home. You know, those are wonderful experiences of independence that we can give our children that are, I mean, they're endless. We could list so many.
But it's so good to get a list, Kristin, because these are things that we find ourselves seamlessly doing. You know, we are packing the lunchbox, we're putting it in the bag, we're carrying the bag, we're doing all the tasks because it just feels seamless and easier to do. And I think we have to kind of be alert to, actually, I could give this away. I could give this job to my child. But I love how you gave the scaffolding, because often we've got to let our child know, this is a great next step for you. And I think you're capable, and I think you've got what it takes. And a child's sense of self-esteem rises with that feeling of, I'm being trusted with this. I'm being allowed to think about this and choose even a way to have a schedule for my Chromebook. So that's beautiful scaffolding that our children really need to feel that they're getting ready.
There's a huge thrill for kids when they have achieved something independently, whether it's, I've cooked dinner for the family. There's, even though there might be a bit of grumbling, grizzling beforehand, oh, why do I have to, but when we kind of have taken the time and helped them to learn how to cook dinner, and then they manage it on their own, they're so proud of themselves. They feel that real thrill of managing something independently. So I think we noticed that in our children. If they get a bus card for the first time and they've actually managed to catch the bus to the mall, or gone to the movies by themselves with their friend without an adult. You know, these things actually give our children such a boost of a feeling of competence, a feeling of independence and pride, which we want. We really want them to be pushing into that.
So good. I think too, like when I think of the jobs I give my kids around the house, I think it is that pride thing of home works better because of the part that I'm playing. Like, you do really see that. So I love that, giving them the opportunity.
And that contribution is such a good thing for children to be doing, is feeling like I'm part of something else, and I've got skills and I can do these things, and I'm not being sort of measured or judged or criticised. I'm being given opportunities. So it's really good for our kids.
Going back to when I was talking about like the whole bus thing, I mean, I suppose we're trying to do age appropriate but for parents who are feeling nervous about letting their little ones, you talk about crossing the road and going to the barber, and there'll be some people listening going, oh, but how do we lean into that more as parents?
A really good principle, and it applies across the board for any task we're trying to offload to our children, is first of all, they watch us doing the task, how to do it, whether it's making a school lunch or something like that, or crossing a road. So they're definitely observing us hundreds of times crossing a road safely. The second step is we do it with them. So they might say, I'm looking to the left, I'm looking to the right, I'm looking again. I think I can cross now, Mum, let's go. And so we're walking across with them. And then the third step might be we stand on the side of the road and watch them do it safely. So we have that same principle with anything. It's a way of scaffolding children and making sure that they are capable before we're taking the hands off. We don't want to just hope for the best, especially if there's anything related to safety. Yeah.
That's good.
We notice that sometimes children who've been independent and they've done things really well on their own suddenly change, and they want you to dress them, or you to pick them up, or you to do things that they're very capable of doing. And I know that parents find this a really tricky time, because you think, oh no, we've covered ground and now we're regressing, basically. So what do you say to parents when they might be in that situation?
We get this in coaching a lot, and there really is a principle of we can relax. This is very normal with children. They are capable of feeding themselves or putting their shoes on or walking, and they say, I can't, you do it, and as parents we can think, oh, for goodness sake, get quite irritated. But it really is, it's very normal, and it might be a sign your child's a bit tired towards the end of term, a bit overwhelmed, a bit anything. And it's not a sign that they're not moving towards independence. It's just very normal toing and froing of a child's development. And it doesn't slow a child's independence down to just think, oh, do you need help today, darling? I'll help you put your shoes on. Come here, sit on my knee. Or I'll feed you. It might be a sign they've just gone through a big life transition. They just want to feel looked after again for a little while. And it's absolutely fine. We don't need to be afraid of that. We call it welcoming dependence. So it's sort of a little bit counterintuitive because we are urging them towards independence in the big picture, but there are going to be moments where it's absolutely fine to welcome dependence.
I love that you've given parents sort of that moment to allow things to be, which are, it looks like regression, but actually a child's probably just wanting a little bit more proximity to you or a bit of help because there's a new baby in the family or it's the end of the year and they're exhausted. So parenting is great this way where we have a journey that we're on and a direction we're going, but we also have some little side roads where we think I can take a little break here.
Yeah. I was thinking too that happens in our home with sickness. I find when my child's been sick, they kind of just have a few days of maybe wanting me to do a little bit more. And so now that I know, okay, this is going to happen, it's like I'm a bit more prepared.
Yeah. Nothing to panic about.
Yeah. Because I think sometimes as parents, I think we can struggle more with our kids being independent going out into the world, which is something I know that I do. And I think too, with my parents separating when I was quite young, maybe feeling a little bit unsafe at times, now I see that playing out. And I know other friends who they find it trickier when that dependence on them, that regressing that they might see. So do you find maybe we find one or the other a little bit harder?
Yeah, I think some parents delight when their children are going out and exploring and growing in independence, and some parents really delight in the feeling of being needed. So it can be individual what we struggle with more, and it's just it is interesting to notice about yourself and to think, I know that this is something that I find harder, but I'm going to have to push myself a little bit to either let them grow up and do things independently or let them come back and need me. So
yeah,
beautiful.
This is a topic that we're not going to totally unpack in 15 to 20 minutes. We're sort of just like opening the lid and looking in there a little bit more. But any final thoughts or ideas around this topic?
I think it's a really good question for parents to ask themselves, to try and think back. What was I doing at this age, at the age my child's at now? Was I making my own lunch every day? Wonder why I'm not letting my child make their lunch. Was I able to walk down to the park with my friend? I wonder if I could let my child do that. So thinking and trying to compare a little bit, if you can remember, what were you doing at that age, and just checking you're on track a little bit.
Jeannie, any last thoughts?
Last thoughts. I'm just thinking of a story that I'd like to sort of end on, which is when it was somebody else who invited our son and his friends, because they were looking after them, to go on a bike ride. And I think he was about 10, and they had a backup plan. They had the money for phoning in the phone booth back then. So there was a great plan, but he got to do something that was such a big stretch for what we were going to be letting him do. And when I saw him and the achievement and the sense of absolute joy and the confidence that it built in him, it gave me a little bit of a reminder, it's time to let a little bit more out. And I think we're doing that in parenting, is just every now and then having a little look at how much am I letting out? How much am I controlling? Could I let a child do a little bit more, even if it's a different chore or the cooking the meal or something like that, which I have held as my own. Sometimes other people, you look and think, they're letting their children do that, it looks safe. I could find out how they set that up and then let our child have a go.
Such a great time of the year too, to be sitting down with pen and paper and going, all right, what can I be handing off a little bit more? Because it makes our lives easier too. Not when you're teaching them and not when they're learning, but actually if we can start to give some tasks, it's a win for everyone. So
absolutely. In the long run, it's very good idea to hand things off to the kids.
Yeah, all right, I'm getting my pen and paper out tonight. If you'd like to find out more about the work we do and how we could be supporting you and your whānau, get in touch, parentingplace.nz.